They call U.S. Route 50 in Nevada the loneliest road in America. It's not a quirky nickname, it's a promise. Out there, the loneliness is a physical thing, a questioned weight in the air. The world shrinks to you, the drone of your engine and the endless blacktop disappearing into an ink-black infinity. I'm an old hand at this game. Loneliness is usually my co-pilot, but even a man like me needs a tether. And out here, where cell service goes to die, that tether is the CB radio. Its crack on hiss are the only proof that you're not the last man on Earth. This particular night started like any other, somewhere on the dead straight stretch between Ely and Austin. The desert felt ancient and dry, the sagebrush silvered by a bone-white moon. That's when my radio started acting up. It began with a violent burst of static, loud enough to make me jump. I fiddled with the squelch, but the static didn't fade. It settled into a low, steady hiss, like sand pouring through a funnel. Then the sound changed. Beneath the hiss, a softer, rhythmic whisper emerged. It was hypnotic, intimate, like someone leaning right over my shoulder. I shook my head hard, blaming fatigue, and took a long swig of bitter coffee. And then, for a fleeting second, the whispering broke. Through a gap in the static, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. It was a voice, faint, distant, and steeped in sorrow. It wasn't a word, just a soft, drawn-out sigh, the sigh of someone who had given up all hope. Then the static roared back, swallowing it whole. But I had heard it. My tether to the world was broadcasting a message from somewhere else entirely. And I had a sickening feeling that somewhere else was not a place to live in, was supposed to tune into. A cold knot of unease tightened in my gut. This felt different from the usual road fatigue tricks of the mind. This felt like a violation. My mind flashed back to my last stop, a grimy little diner outside of Ely. The attendant, an old Paiute man with eyes like black stones, had given me a warning. Headed west on the 50, he'd asked. When I nodded, he looked out at the shimmering desert. This land is thirsty, he said. It holds on to things. People get lost. The car breaks down. Some of them, the desert keeps. You hear anything on that radio of yours, you don't answer. And whatever you do, you don't ever stop. The desert just wants a new friend, and it's not picky. At the time, I dismissed it as spooky folklore. Now, his words echoed in my head louder than the static. The lone sigh on the radio was joined by another sound, a low, masculine mumble. Then the voices began to clear, coming through in fragmented sentences. Told you we shouldn't have taken the cutoff, a woman's voice strained with panic. Be quiet, you're scared of child, a man's voice trying to be strong but failing. And then a third voice, one that made my stomach clench into a fist of ice. A little girl. She wasn't speaking, she was crying. A thin, reedy wail of pure misery that cut right through the hiss. This was no radio interference. It was a tragedy, playing out on a loop from a time and a place that no longer existed. The old man was right. The desert was thirsty, and it had kept these souls. The ghostly conversation grew clearer, a tapestry of rising desperation. A family, a man, a woman and their daughter, stranded when their car broke down. The water's almost gone, Richard. I can fix it. I just need more light. It's so cold now. Sarah's shivering. I was a captive audience to their final hours. Then the horror escalated. They became aware of me. The shift was chillingly direct. The woman's voice, raw with grief, suddenly cried out, "Is anyone there? Please, I hear something. A truck!" The man's voice boomed through the speaker, as if he were yelling right into my ear. "Hello! Can you hear me? We need help! For God's sake, stop!"
My hand instinctively reached for the mic. The old man's warning flashed in my mind. "You don't answer." My hand froze. Then came the little girl's voice, no longer crying, but speaking with an eerie, heartbreaking clarity. "Mr. Trucker, are you out there? We're so lost." The sound of my own identity, Mr. Trucker, coming from her phantom lips, broke through my resolution. My foot eased off the accelerator. The rig began to slow. The voices erupted with hope. "He's stopping, Richard! He's stopping!" Then the woman's voice changed. The panic was gone, replaced by a hungry, chilling sweetness that turned my blood to ice. "That's right," she cooed. "Come on now. There's plenty of room for one more. We've been so lonely." It was a trap. Their tragedy was the bait, and their loneliness was the hook. They weren't asking for salvation. They were recruiting. My foot slammed back down on the accelerator. The engine roared in defiance as the truck surged forward. A collective wail of rage and disappointment erupted from the radio, a sound so full of malice it felt like a physical force pushing against my truck.
Having failed with pleas, they turned to temptation. The voices became smooth, intimate whispers, custom-made for a man who lives his life on the road. "So tired," the man's voice murmured. "Just pull over. The ground is soft. You could sleep for 1,000 years. No more deadlines, no more dispatchers, just rest." My eyes burned with fatigue. The idea of endless, dreamless rest was an almost irresistible siren's call. Then the woman's voice whispered something that struck me like a physical blow. "Don't you miss your boy?" How could she know? My son Mark died 5 years ago. It was a pain I kept buried deep. "He's here," she lied, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "He's waiting for you. Just stop, and you can see him again." A sob caught in my throat. Raw grief threatened to choke me, to make me swerve and surrender. But it was the little girl's voice that saved me with its cold, cruel honesty. "He's not here," she said, matter-of-factly. "But he can be. We just need you to stop." The raw manipulation snapped me back. Rage burned away the sorrow. They were using my deepest pain as a weapon. They were monsters. "Not tonight," I growled at the radio. As if in response, something appeared in my headlights. On the shoulder of the road ahead, a single hazard light was faintly flashing. As I got closer, the shape resolved itself. It was a vintage station wagon with wood paneling, its front axle broken. Standing beside it were 3 figures: a man, a woman, and a child. The man raised his arm, flagging me down. The voices on my radio screamed in unison, "There! That's us! Please stop! You have to stop!" This was it, the final test. An illusion woven from sound and despair. Every instinct I had as a trucker screamed at me to pull over. It was the law of the road. You never leave anyone stranded.
In the final, stretched out second before I reached them, the full glare of my headlights hit the family on the side of the road. Their faces were pale and drawn, their clothes tattered and dated, and their eyes were hollow, empty sockets. Worst of all, they were translucent. I could see the sagebrush and the moonlit desert right through them. I held my course, my foot welded to the floor. I drove right at them. The moment my grill passed through the space where they stood, the cab was filled with a soul-shattering scream. It was the sound of 100 voices crying out in rage, frustration, and eternal loneliness. The temperature dropped 20 degrees, and the windows of my cab frosted over from the inside. A ghostly, chilling pressure slammed against the truck as if countless unseen hands were trying to push me off the road and drag me down with them. I fought the wheel, my muscles straining as the 80,000-pound rig fishtailed on the empty highway. I was driving blind through a hurricane of phantom rage. And then, as my trailer cleared the spot, it stopped. Instantly. The scream cut out. The pressure vanished. The frost melted away. And the CB radio fell completely, utterly silent. The static, the whispering, the voices, all of it gone. I was left with only the steady hum of my engine. The silence was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. I didn't slow down until I saw the first lights of the next town. I pulled into a brightly lit truck stop, my body shaking so violently I could barely put the rig in park. Later that week, I took out the old CB radio and threw it in a dumpster. I drive with a satellite phone now. I still have to take Route 50 sometimes, but only during the day, because the land is still thirsty out there, and I know with a certainty that will haunt me until I die that those voices are still broadcasting their terrible loneliness into the dark, just waiting for some other tired driver to make the mistake of listening. Just waiting for a new friend.